cases for public hearing this evening. First, we need to conduct some business. You want to call a roll for us?
James Feinerman.
Here.
Steve Dowd.
Here.
Harold Dixon.
Here.
Carla Austin.
Here.
Steve Wallnick. Susan Wingard.
Here.
Tom Duffy.
Here. Thank you, Sharon. We have a quorum this evening, and next item on the agenda is the minutes from the April meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to read them, review them, questions, comments, corrections? There's none, is there a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, piece of business is taken care of. As mentioned, we have 3 cases for public hearing, and we'll open the public hearing phase of the meeting. First case this evening is case number 1626 at 111 North Fort Thomas Avenue. I'm going to try this. Cintia Villalobos
Villalobos.
Gonzalez is the applicant, requesting a conditional use permit for a photography studio. Mark, do you have anything you want to add to this before we open the hearing?
Just that the staff feels that this will fit into the neighborhood with the businesses. It's not going to be bringing a lot of traffic or causing a lot of traffic issues. It's got plenty of parking. The ordinance requires 4 parking spaces. They have 5 in the rear and 2 in the street, so lots of parking. And due to the nature of business, not exactly a high turnover like a retail business would be. So for staff, it appears to feel as an appropriate business in zone.
Okay. Do we have a spokesperson this evening for this case?
This is new for her. This is the first
Okay.
time she's ever done so.
This is fine, but please come to the podium so where the microphone can at least pick you up. First, if you will, please give your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Cintia Villalobos. The address is 111 North Thomas Avenue, Thomas, Kentucky 41075.
Okay. You need to raise your right hand. You promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
And that's right.
Okay. If you will, just give us a brief description of what you're proposing to do.
So I'm opening a photography studio for portraits, boudoir, family. It's like a mix of photography. That's basically that. Just for photography services.
Do you have,
Sorry, I'm so nervous. I think no
I
name
understand.
works in my mind.
you don't need to be, but, will you have set hours that you're open, or you operate by
It's just for
appointment
by
only?
appointment only.
Appointment only?
Yeah.
Okay. And we already discussed the parking, and there know about it. So. Any members of the board have any questions for? Any members here this evening have any questions?
Just to follow up on your inquiry, does this mean that you will be accepting or making appointments with clients 7 days a week?
Well, depending, probably only 5 to 6 days a week. But I don't have like a specific schedule, because it's like, or it would be like evenings or early in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's
You
depending
need
on
to
the-
be able to accommodate the client's
The client's.
schedules.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Can you just, are the mics on? Because I'm not hearing everyone. The microphones.
Just maybe speak a little bit closer into them, folks.
Thanks.
doesn't appear to have any other questions. It looks to me like it's a pretty clean, cut and dry request for a photography studio in part of the central business district. Seems appropriate use of the property. I would support it. Anybody else ready to do that?
I'll make a motion, concerning the conditional use permit. Considering that the space could be used for a department store, music studio, things that are a lot more intrusive and disruptive to the neighborhood than a photography studio, and considering the photography studio is a business that would add services to the city that is not currently available, I think it would be a net positive, and I do not see it therefore impacting the general welfare of the community as a whole.
Okay, we have a motion to grant the request. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
I just have one quick point. I see everything that you mentioned, but then verbally you also mentioned boudoir. I'd just like to state for the record that we're a family-friendly city, so just making sure that everything that is forward-facing be appropriate for all eyes at all times.
It's not any nude or anything that inappropriate.
Any other questions, comments? Want to call the roll?
James Steichen,
Aye.
Steve Dowd,
Aye.
Carol Dixon,
Aye.
Carla Austin, Susan Windler,
Aye.
Tom Duckworth.
Aye.
Motion carries. You have the approval.
Thank you.
Next case this evening is case number 1627 at 42 Sheridan Avenue. E.E. Woods Homes. Is the applicant requesting a dimensional variance for the construction of a new single-family home. Mark, do you want to add anything to this before we open the hearing?
It's currently a vacant lot. The house was torn down a few years ago, and they have E. Woods was granted the contract to build a house there for a client. They're just asking for a side yard setback for the left rear corner of the house. All the other setbacks are to be met, and so it's going to be, they're asking for a 2.56 foot variance to go from 8 feet down to 5.44 feet.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Do we have a spokesperson for this case this evening? We'll give your name and address for the record.
My name is Taylor Wood. The address for the project is 42 Sheridan Avenue. The address of the business is 4359 Etta West Drive, Dayton, Ohio.
Okay. You need to raise your right hand. Promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
All right. Give us a little description of what you're proposing, if you will.
Yeah, just a residential house, about 2,000 square feet, 28 feet wide by about 46 feet deep. We want to change the setbacks from 8 feet to 5 feet, so we are able to get a 2-car garage on the lot in order to put on about a 2,000 square foot house.
Well, that's one of my questions, because we get a little contradictory here on something that, so you're seeking a variance on both sides?
Yeah, well, that plan that we have currently, that's the idea of what we want to do. If there was any adjustment on it, like if we wanted to put it over another 2 feet on the other side, we figured might as well go for 5 feet on both sides, just to have that wiggle room if you wanted to make any adjustments to the plan. As of now, that plan is pretty much what we're going with, but it was just kind of trying to get ahead of baseball if there was any changes we wanted to make.
Well, on a survey we got here, it only shows the.
Yeah, the back corner there.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that's just a preliminary plot plan with it. The big reason we got that was just so we could understand what we were really working with size-wise, and what, at the minimum, what we need to do. But ideally, we would like to have 5 feet on each side.
Okay. square feet is the house again?
It'll be in total 2,057, I believe. Rough drawings. Yeah, 2,057.
And then the renderings that you've supplied,
Yeah.
this is the current rendering?
Yeah, that's the current plan right now. There wouldn't be, as of now, it'd be very similar to that. It'd be brick in the front and all siding around. But for the most part, it'll be that type of style, that all siding with a little bit of brick facade in front.
And this is a copy of a text message from a neighbor?
Yeah, that is a neighbor at 46 Sheridan, I believe, which is next, if you're looking at the lot from the street, next door to the right, which is a little closer.
That's why I was wondering, because I didn't see an address
Yeah.
associated with it.
I believe it's 46 Sheridan.
That's us, we're here.
Okay.
So am I reading this correctly, that it's just a piece is?
Yeah.
Is that little corner? That's
Yeah,
all?
the back corner is where it does go over the variance there. About 3 feet-ish, give or take. I think it's a little less than 3 feet. But yeah, that's really the big area where we were hoping to be able to get that variance.
So like the last 10 feet is
Yeah,
3 feet, okay.
yeah. Yeah, if you're able to pull it in 3 feet there, the rest of it should go.
And that would be to the left-hand side, which is the adjoining property that is where the residence is further away, not the one where it's closest to.
Yeah, I believe the residence is further away on the left-hand side where it sits off pretty far from the property line. Yes.
Anyone here this evening have any questions or comments on this case? If you will, please come up so you can be picked up on the microphone. Please give your name and address.
Yeah, can 36 Sheridan Avenue, Fort Thomas.
All right.
My concern is the apparent fluidity of the plan. I have no objection to the plan as it's written, but the idea of changing plans midstream is a serious concern because of things that have happened apparently on the street before. Neighbors, there was some furor over changes that happened. And I have no objection to the plan. I'm on the left side. That will not affect my home lot. Since 1978, not a problem whatsoever. But if the plans were to change somehow, that is a serious concern, probably to everyone.
When you say plans change, if
Well, what he just said.
well, what I want to ask you is, are you making reference to the actual physical plan of the floor plan of the house, or
The plan that's in this, the one that's already been submitted, the one that's right here, the pictures,
okay?
the map. If that plan is the one that's done, this one here, no problem. But according to what he just said, these things are somehow subject to change. And I don't get that. I think that once it's decided here that compliance with the plan is paramount.
Well, this board has one function, and that is it relates to the setback, the distance from, in your case, your property line to where you would like to build the house.
Correct. I have no problem with it as it's stated in this drawing.
Okay. All right. I understand.
Okay. That's all I got to say.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments? If you will, please come forward. Again, please.
My name's Randy Bailey. My wife and I live at 46 Sheridan, the house to the right of the proposed
All right.
build. The only thing I have is I just want to be certain that I understand that the variation that y'all are asking for is only 5 feet. that is, that it will not come closer than 5 feet to the property line. Is that?
That's what's being applied for, yes,
Great.
sir.
Then we're happy to have some new neighbors.
Anyone else this evening have any questions or comments on this case? Well, what do members of the board think? Anybody have any questions, comments?
Well, so, we're talking about the way the current plat is set up. There's just a little jut out on the left side. But the variance, if I understand correctly, is going to allow 3 foot on either side.
That's not how I'm interpreting the application.
Am I reading this wrong?
The application shows that it'll jut out on the left side. However, the applicant has proposed at the meeting this evening to maybe adjust to down to 5 feet on both sides, give them a little wiggle room to adjust the house if there was first to change it. But that's up to the board what they want to do this evening. If they want to allow to reduce down to 5 feet on both sides, or just do, or have it even less of a variance, or they don't want to approve the site plan that's submitted to you.
For the left side.
The left side variance only.
So I'm assuming that the idea to look for the 3 feet on either, both sides is to be able to shift the house a little bit, wiggle it within that spot. Would we be able to say that, well, that has merit because you want to be locked into it, that only will approve on both sides, but you can only end up using one side? In other words, I don't want to be in a situation where we grant, I can see granting the 3 feet, it juts over, you wiggle the house, you get 3 feet on the other side. I get it, but I don't want to have 3 feet on both sides.
Okay, that's up to the board.
Okay.
I mean, if everybody agrees with you.
No, yeah, I'm in agreement with you, particularly since the house on the left does have so much more distance from the house to the property line.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be appropriate, any variance that's granted would be on that side,
Right.
and that side only.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, can we say you get 3 feet, you pick the side, but you only can do it on one side?
If that's true.
And if they want to wiggle it and move it a little to the right,
I think that the board should make it specific as possible so that there's no misinterpretations on either my or my plain view or by the applicant when we do make the application.
Because one
Granted,
pivot can be split.
if you want to go 1.5 feet on each side, or however you guys want to break it down, that you specify how much on each side that you're willing to agree to. And not leave it so open-ended, just so that everything is very specific.
And the current 28-foot width fits everything that you want to accomplish with the house, correct?
Yeah, 28-foot width accomplishes everything we want. Just to clarify, on the application, I did mention 5 foot on 5-yard setbacks. I did not clarify both sides, but we were looking for both sides. To be honest, there's a lot of houses in that neighborhood that are even closer than 5 feet, so I don't think it'd be impeding on anybody's, or the nature of the neighborhood or anything along those lines as well.
Why do you feel the 5 feet on both sides would?
It just gives us a little bit more space. It gives us, it would
Would
give
you
us
build a larger house, or?
No, the house would stay the same. It just gives you a little more space to work on each side in case, like, somebody wanted to put a back patio on there or something along those lines down the road.
I'm not comfortable at all with the term wiggle room. I mean, the plans, which
Yeah.
are very specific, have been drawn up,
Yeah.
and whether the lot has been surveyed, you know what the topography is.
Yeah. Yeah, the plan that we gave is an engineered plot plan.
Right.
And it does give you the amount of space between each side, the property line where the house sits. So if I'm saying wiggle room, that's probably not the correct term, but what I should be saying is the exact number is 3 feet really on each side that we would like to be able to have in order to maybe center the house, or if there's a water or sewer connection that may be in a driveway that we can possibly move it out of the way of. That's just, but either way, we have to get it zoned, get everything, get the plan approved and everything, either way, before anything happens on the land.
It seems to me that any variance granted by this board this evening will be set in stone. And if in the process of building this home, additional setback is needed, you would present a new application before the board.
Yeah, that's why we're asking for 5 feet on each side, so we don't have to come back to this meeting. So if there is that ability to have that space around there, we need to move the house 1 foot to the right. We still have 2 feet on the right-hand side to work with for a side yard, so it's not on top of everybody so much. That's really the reason why I want to put that in there on both sides.
So frequently when there was a former house on the lot, you can see where lines were. Are there any indications of where those utilities are?
Yeah, the utilities, so I know the water's on the left-hand side. Electric will actually, as of now, will be coming in overhead, so that's nothing to work with. Gas is on the right-hand side, and the sewer's actually on the right-hand side as well.
So nothing that you see that would be running through the property that you're aware of?
Like, existing? Is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
like meaning the sewer line or the water line doesn't run through, to your point of having to wiggle it to one side or the other.
The sewer, I can't say 100%. I mean, you can, I'd have to check, but what I'm used to, you can put the sewer, we don't want to put the sewer under a driveway, but at least where we build a lot, you can. But that's the last thing we want to do, is put a water line or a sewer line under the driveway. But from what I can tell, it'd be really close with the driveway, but I can't say 100% sure or not.
That's the request for the wiggle room.
Yeah, exactly. We just want to be able to have a little bit of space in case we can, just so we can avoid an issue like that.
The air handler outside, the compressor outside?
Compressor?
HVAC.
The HVAC?
The air conditioning?
Yeah.
Unit, yeah.
Where will that be located?
As of now, we haven't made a complete decision, but if I had to guess, we put it either on we'll just think about the plan, probably left back inside the house.
Thank you.
You know, just thinking about space.
Anybody else? Questions? I'm in agreement with you. I think we need to be specific about it.
Yeah, not to cause any issues, I'm a little hesitant on granting both left and right side, and only just because you presented this as, you know, a specific amount of feet for this variance. I feel like, why didn't you kind of think about this and put that originally saying, hey, I want a 5-foot or 3-foot variance on both sides to begin with?
The original application says
So
Okay.
5-foot side yard
Yeah.
setbacks.
Okay, I'm sorry, I did not.
Sorry. And I might have, in the letter as well, I think I put it on both sides. Let me probably just, I don't know if I put it in the letter or not, but I definitely, 5 yards, proposed 5-foot yard setback on each side to alleviate this issue.
Gotcha. Thank you, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Anyone else have any questions or comments this evening? Well, members?
Another thing, hey, it's new construction.
Yeah.
Worry about the lot, you know what you're getting.
Yeah, that's true. Agree.
I'm comfortable giving it on one side, I'm not comfortable giving it on both. That's me.
Great.
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
I'll mess it up.
I can make a motion to, I'll make a motion to approve a left side yard setback. For a 5 foot side yard setback. Mainly because this was a known condition of this lot before it was purchased and the floodplain was put in place. I think that due to the size of the land on the left side, doesn't impinge upon the neighborhood quality or character. Based upon the topography of the site, that slopes back, it allows for the consideration of that left side yard.
Okay, so we have a motion to grant the request for the left side, left rear side of the house variance. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Everybody understand the motion is to, it's just on the left rear side? Yes. Want to call a roll?
James Finnegan,
Aye.
Steve Dowd,
Aye.
Carol Dixon,
Aye.
Carla Austin,
Aye.
Susan Wingard,
Aye.
Tom Duckworth.
Aye.
Motion carries. You have your approval for the left rear side. Okay, next case this evening is continued case from previously. It's case number 1622 at 76 Tower Hill Road. S.L. Williams Homes is the applicant, requesting a side yard dimensional variance for the construction of a new single-family home. Mark, is there anything you want to add to this before we open the hearing? Other than what's been discussed previously?
The line was not as, where everybody thought it was, and so I did get a side yard variance. Looks like it's 18. Since the line was not where everybody thought it was, they had asked for an additional variance of 0.7 feet to, because now the house is 2 feet off the line, so the 2.7 was granted at the previous meeting.
So the new request is 0.7 feet, is that correct?
Correct. To go from 2.7 feet down to 2 feet. So it'll be a total of 7-foot variance from the requirements of the zone.
All right. Who is spokesperson for this case? Please give your name and address to the resident.
Yeah, my name is Brian Dunham of Dunham Law, 300 Buttermilk Pike, Suite 100, and that's in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. And I represent S.L. Williams Homes.
All right, you need to be sworn in. You promise to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please, you're giving your name for us already, so thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Give us a description of what you're proposing.
Can I hand this out? Is that all right?
Sure.
Oh. Yeah, if you could mark that as an exhibit, please. So let me start by saying you remember how the meeting went last go around. We've resolved things with our neighbor, Ms. Mayer. I think what happened after Ms. Mayer heard our story, based on what Mr. Volker told me, is that they didn't quite understand how we got to the point that we got. Originally, the thought was that Mr. Adams just did what he wanted to do and ignored concerns that they had raised. Mr. Adams has owned S.L. Williams Homes for about 25 years. He's been a builder even longer than that. That's not how he does business. He never has and did not here. What happened was when he, the owner of his lot and Ms. Mayer's lot was the same owner. And he reconfigured the lot lines, and hired a surveyor to do that. The plat was approved. The legal descriptions were created. But, and even the PDA picked up the change in the lot line. But the deed, there was never a deed filed of record transferring what you see in front of you is the orange highlighted section to the lot that was being sold to Mr. Adams. Everybody thought that it had been done. The city thought it when they looked at PDA. That was what everyone thought when the variance came in. So, but in fact, it didn't happen. The seller, when he sold the property, he gave this exhibit that showed the legal description that included the orange piece. So Mr. Adams buys the property, he hires a title company, he gives him all of this stuff, closes on the property, thinks he's done everything correctly, and starts construction on the home. If you all may recall, Mr. Volker explained that he sent a letter telling Mr. Adams to stop. Well, first off, Mr. Adams hired a surveyor to come back out in the field because he thought the complaint was that the house was being constructed too close to the property line, and he knew that he had gotten the variance. And the surveyor looked at it and said, no, you're fine. You've got the variance and you're not encroaching beyond that. So he gets the letter from Brandon, Mr. Volker, and telling him, you know, there's a problem. You're building on property you don't own or where you're not supposed to be. And Mr. Adams called immediately because that's in his nature. It came on a Friday. He called on a Friday afternoon and left a message and was never able to hook up with Mr. Volker. In Mr. Volker's letter, it never said exactly the problem other than it was too close. And we knew that the building was still okay with the variance. What we did not know is that orange piece was not part of Mr. Adams' lot. It was still stuck with the lot to the right as you're looking at this plat, and that's owned by Ms. Mayer. And you see what happens is if you tack that orange parcel on Ms. Mayer's site, now all of a sudden it looks kind of like the rear, but it's actually technically the side. But that line that runs closest to where the house would be located, it now encroaches there as part of everything. It comes in tighter than we expected. So, once we brought it to Ms. Mayer and Mr. Volker's attention, they acknowledged that Rob didn't do anything wrong. He did what he was supposed to, he was relying on the title company, he was relying on surveyors, and he thought that the deed had been filed of record. So that's kind of how we got where it is. We've entered into a settlement agreement. All claims are on both sides of it are released. We're being granted an easement on this orange piece, a total and exclusive easement where we have complete control of that. And Ms. Mayer's in the process of getting a release, trying to get a release of her mortgage on this orange piece. And as soon as that's completed, then the orange piece will be conveyed over to S.L. Williams. So not only are they not against the request with the setback, they've granted an exclusive easement as part of this. They haven't executed it yet, but it's attached to the settlement. They've agreed to do it immediately. And then we will ultimately, unless the lender refuses to release their mortgage, they will be conveying this parcel over to S.L. Williams. The other thing I'd like to add that helps add a little context to this is the topography of the site. And I know that you've got some like the color GIS there. But if you're on the site, the orange piece, it made sense for the seller to agree to include that on the S.L. Williams lot. It is above Ms. Mayer's property. And it would appear, if you're looking at it, that that really would be the backyard of this lot. It's the same grade and it goes straight into the hillside where the woods are. Now we've got, I don't even think this, I mean, it would be almost impossible to get up that hill and cut that grass for that piece of it. So, it's a unique structure of the lot. The other thing I'll say is, if you notice, this is in a bend, around the bend on this street. So it's another reason why, this is a unique lot and a unique setting where we believe would be appropriate to grant that additional 0.7 in variance here. Mr. Adams here, if you have any other questions for me or Mr. Adams.
I have one, and that is, the variance, if granted, will end up being a temporary variance, if I'm understanding you correctly, that the variance will go away when the lot line changes.
Well, I mean, we won't need the variance anymore once the deed is, the bank agrees to release their mortgage and the deed is conveyed over. But we don't know that that will definitely happen because what happens is when you need a partial release from your mortgage to say, hey, you've got collateral on this, but I'm going to sell part of it, sometimes they'll say, hey, you need to pay off your mortgage or pay it down because our collateral is not worth as much. I think everyone on both sides of this issue feel confident that the bank's going to release it without requiring the loan be paid down because it wouldn't seem natural, it wouldn't impact the value of their site for this kind of outlier piece to not be included. But, so it could be permanent, we don't believe it'll be permanent, but it could be.
Well, I guess where I'm headed with this is I'd like to think it would become permanent and that we not go through this scenario again in another 6 months or something to that. So this.
Well, the home is constructed, and so as soon as the variance is granted, it's done. There would not be another need to come back here.
Okay.
And of course, we want it to all be done, and it does add value to. I don't know so much as it adds value, but it detracts from the current value that S.L. Williams has, having their backside yard kind of locked off. And so we've structured this arrangement that everybody has an incentive to try and do what everyone expected on the front end, and that was to convey the orange piece with the S.L. Williams lot.
And just to further clarify what Mr. Meineke was asking, should they not do the partial release, that's where the easement, exclusive easement comes in.
Exactly. That's right. That's right. That's why we did it in 2 steps. So it feels like we own it. We've agreed we'll maintain it. We have exclusive rights to it, but we don't actually own fee simple title to it unless they can work somehow with their bank.
So this home, the home that's been built on Tower Hill, is not yet sold. It is owned by S.L. Williams, correct?
Right, we need it, we can't even get a conditional,
Okay.
the certificate of occupancy for it until this is resolved.
Wow. So to piggyback on what Mr. Beinecke and Ms. Dixon have talked about, so that this matter doesn't come up again, dependent upon how all of this legality is resolved with the transfer of property and the deed being properly filed, etc. As Mr. Beinecke said, we just want to ensure that this matter doesn't come before the board again.
I can answer.
And neither of you want that as well.
Yeah, so, let me, make, I wasn't quite as clear on this point as I probably should be. We have a settlement agreement where they release all claims against us related to this use. It has been signed, it is done. We in turn agree that we are releasing any claims against them. It is done. This is going away. The only issue are we left with just an easement on this parcel, or do we hopefully actually get full ownership of it?
Right.
So,
Thank you for that.
And then this would just be the more expeditious route, because who knows how long the partial release could take, and therefore this allows you to sell the property.
correct. I've had some lenders that they do this in a few weeks. I literally worked on this for years on some releases too, so.
Does anyone here this evening have any questions or comments on this case? We all understand it?
7 inches, right?
0.7 feet.
0.7 feet.
Anybody?
Mike, you're closing the evidentiary portion?
Yes. Anybody care to have any discussion or make a motion?
I mean, it's at this point pretty dry.
It appears to be, I agree. But we thought it was previously.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the 0.7-foot additional variance for this property. Due to the misapplication or mishandling of the survey, no fault of the developer or property owner, I don't believe it would also deprive the homeowners being impinged upon any loss of use of the property or unnecessary hardship due to the location, the slope, and topography. And this was not done under any circumstance that the knowingly by the applicant in this process.
Okay, we have a motion to grant the request. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just have one quick point. Can we just make sure that all the numbers are in alignment? Because I'm hearing a 0.7, I'm seeing a 7-foot side yard variance, I'm seeing a 3.1, so I just want to make sure that all the numbers jive so we have exactly what we need.
0.7 means about 11 1/8 of an inch. That gives you kind of, whenever you put 2 foot
Yeah.
point, that.
I just want to make sure the record reflects exactly what we needed to say.
You tell me like this. There you go.
The overall variance, because the side yard setback requirement for that zone is 9 feet. So the overall variance is 7 feet, because they're going down to 2 feet.
But our current motion only mentions a 0.7
Because
additional
there was
inches.
a granted last,
0.7 additional.
was 2.7 feet, was granted last year for this project. And now they're going down to 2 feet. So there's a 0.7 variance from that variance.
So then the total variance would be to go down to 2 feet
Correct.
flat. And so I just think that our wording on that variant, or on that motion, just needs to be uber clear on
Mr. Dow, would you like to amend and or clarify your motion?
For clarification, if I understand correctly, we're proposing a 2-foot.
It would
Well,
7.
Our 7-foot.
7-foot variance.
7-foot
leaving
variance with a
2-foot
2-foot setback.
setback. If you added to them. Everybody good with that?
Yes.
Yes.
And
I think that clears it up, it makes
Okay.
everything correct now.
All right. Want to call the roll?
James Spider?
Aye.
Was there a second?
Yes, there was.
Okay, thank you.
I think.
You want to?
I seconded, and I will second again the amendment to Mr. Dower's motion.
Thank you.
Steve Dowd,
Aye.
Carol Dixon,
Aye.
Carla Austin,
Aye.
Susan Weaver,
Aye.
Tom Darwood.
Aye.
Motion carries. You have that variance.
Thank you.
I'm curious, how could the PDA have picked that up and it never ever been filed?
We're not 100% sure. Ever since this thing started, we had to go do some serious due diligence.
I was gonna say.
And,
I know the answer to that. Campbell does things a little different than some counties, and so when the cut-up plat, it gets submitted to the PDA, and they adjust the PINs around, but then you have to pick it up, and then you gotta record it with the deed at the clerk's office, and so that never happened. And I think,
if it wasn't for Brian Cox and the original surveyor having a nice sit down with us and walking us through what he knows happened, I don't know that we'd ever found out how this ever got to where it got to. Because this got approved not last year, or the year before, this got approved years ago, like when I bought it.
Well, I know it went through this board as well as
Yes,
planning.
yes, exactly, yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like,
So we
what
would
else could
always
go wrong?
scratch our head, and unfortunately, things got a little out of control at the last meeting, and I apologize, even though I don't think I was in charge of any of that, but I apologize for you all having to sit through something that I've had to deal with now for 3 months, and it's cost me quite a bit of money.
Hell
Right.
nightmare.
It's a learning lesson. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've developed many, many properties, and I've never, ever seen something like this. And lesson learned.
But because even the obvious question had been, well, it didn't get filed. We'll go file it now. You know, like,
That would have been the easy fix.
because we closed with, or the seller who sold it to Mr. Adams closed with Ms. Mayer. And so it's still tacked on to that legal description.
oh, okay.
And so she owns it.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So you couldn't
unfortunately.
have without impeding
Yeah.
the mortgage
The
property.
mortgage was
Sure.
what scared her to death, was like, they're gonna ask me, and she has a 2% mortgage. She was afraid that they were gonna call the note in.
Oh,
And then
I
have
can
to get a
understand.
7% mortgage.
Yeah.
That's not probably what would happen, but in today's world, we don't know that could
One never
happen.
knows.
So, totally understand why she was a little bit scared, and I kind of wish it would have been easier to talk about it and more open, but in these situations, I think people think they're holding cards, and we weren't holding any cards, we were just unaware. So,
Anything else to come before us this evening?